Live from Washington, D.C., Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow.
Remember when we said hit the pause button on the issue of refugee status in the United States, that we needed to give in-country, in-region aid to those that are subject to persecution, but coming into the United States when the FBI, and I want to get that bite up, we'll play it after the break, where we have the FBI Director Comey saying, we can't vet all these people, we can't give you that information. Well, here's why the FBI has been so concerned about this. Although the Department of Justice is turning or the White House is turning it aside. But here's the reality. 2 refugees from Iraq, both Palestinians, both were arrested on terrorism-related charges on Thursday in California and Texas. In Texas, of course, the government called for the halt of the terrorists. Both suspects, as I said, Palestinians born in Iraq, arrived in the United States as refugees and have been accused of having ties to jihadist terror groups in Syria and Iraq, including the Islamic State. Omar Saeed al-Hardan, 24, was arrested in Houston. Charged, again, federally charged, not state charges, federal charges, with 3 counts of attempting to provide material support for the Islamic State. That was from the Office of the United States Attorney General for the Southern District of Texas. That's the U.S. Department of Justice. In California, the individual there, El Jahab, 23, charged with traveling to Syria to fight alongside terrorist groups, including Ansar al-Islam, and lying about his actions to immigration officials, and then coming back into the United States. This is an unbelievable serious situation, and it underscores what James Comey, the head of the FBI, had to say about it. Take a listen.
There is risk associated with bringing anybody in from the outside, but especially from a conflict zone like that. From the intelligence community's perspective, I think we've developed an effective way to touch all of our databases and resources to figure out what we know about individuals. Right? And so that's my piece of it. I don't think that's a cumbersome process. My concern there is that there are certain gaps that I don't want to talk about publicly in the data available to us.
Let me say this is exactly what I was concerned about. We're going to take your calls on this and your reaction to this. And the president's still calling for refugee grants in the United States. You say, how could that possibly be? Let's get your comments and calls.
What happened? This is from Colleen. Said, what changes or limitations need to be implemented to stop the sort of executive powers of the president from this stuff happening in the country?
All right, so we need to pause. I think the right position we advocate is you pause, you stop the regional refugee status programs until we can figure out both vetting and know exactly what we have here. And we don't know that yet. And until we know that, you hit pause. That's what, when you're in a situation in business or in life or in the practice of law where you've got a major crisis that you're developing, you've got to react. You don't have the luxury of not reacting, but you've got to think the consequences through. Here, you hit pause. When you don't know the circumstances of who you're admitting to the United States of America, hit pause, provide aid in region. We gave you those numbers last month about what the differential of who was coming in and who wasn't coming in. It was significant. So we say hit pause. We think that's the safe thing. We have crossed 100,000 signatures recognizing the genocide to protect Christians in the Middle East. You can still add your name. Last day to do it today, aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
Islamic State jihadists behead, mutilate, and torture Christians. The brutal toll of nearly 1 million Christians have been slaughtered or displaced. ISIS is engaged in the blatant genocide of Christians in the Middle East. Yet, President Obama refuses to recognize the genocide against Christians. He's pressuring the State Department to deny endangered Christians critical legal protections from ISIS's slaughter. The ACLJ is fighting back, aggressively advocating for vital international legal protections for Christians. We've mobilized our offices on Capitol Hill and across the globe, filing crucial legal documents to protect persecuted Christians from ISIS genocide. Stand up for Christians right now. Sign on to our new petition to recognize the genocide and protect Christians. Call now 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
All right, if you're listening on radio, if you're watching us on Facebook or Periscope, if you're watching on our website, share it with your friends now. We've got a lot to discuss. 2 refugees from Iraq, one arrested in Houston, the other arrested in California, both Palestinians, both providing material support and training from and to ISIS. The individual from Syria, one of the individuals from Syria, Mr. Jaib, living in Arizona and Wisconsin before settling in Sacramento, California. The other individual lives in Houston, Texas. They entered refugee statuses in 2009, were granted legal permanent residency status in 2011. Both were engaged in material support of terrorist organizations and lying on their statements when they came into the United States. We've got a lot of comments coming in and a lot of phone calls, Logan.
Yeah, we do have a comment coming in that said, how can this be? We had one from it came from Neon String immediately when we started the broadcast and said, surely this will help shut down the plan to bring essentially the refugees here right now without any sort of screening.
All right, so, Than, let me play first James Comey's statement. This is the head of the FBI saying there's risk with this. And listen to what this is the FBI director just a couple months back. Here's what he said.
There is risk associated with bringing anybody in from the outside, but especially from a conflict zone like that. From the intelligence community's perspective, I think we've developed an effective way to touch all of our databases and resources to figure out what we know about individuals. Right? And so that's my piece of it. I don't think that's a cumbersome process. My concern there is that there are certain gaps that I don't want to talk about publicly in the data available to us.
Pretty scary thought. We know that's the fact. That's why we laid out a 5-point plan on how to deal with this. Congress, the House passed it. Than, where is it now and what does it look like?
Well, Jay, I actually had conversations with both House and Senate leadership on this morning in light of the news that came out overnight, and here's where we're at. The House legislation, as you noted, did pass. That would pause the refugee program until the FBI, who you just heard from, and other agencies can certify its security. Now, the Senate, Majority Leader McConnell, has promised to vote on that earlier this year, but the president continues to oppose it. So my conversation this morning with both sides of the Hill is that bill needs to be on his desk next week. He can then deal with it, but the time for a vote has come and gone. The Senate needs to send that to the president, Jay.
Well, we wrote a piece. It's up on ACLJ.org, and that was pretty much adopted by the House then. I mean, it was basically what we wrote is what they adopted.
No, absolutely. It would immediately pause the program until all of these agencies would certify. And Jay, I mean, that's pretty common sense. If the FBI and the other intelligence agencies can't separate terrorists from refugees, then we should not be admitting people posing as refugees. We saw overnight they're not all refugees.
No, that's exactly right. Hey, look, folks, we're getting a big response. A lot of people are going on Facebook and Periscope. Share this with your friends. We're breaking this down for you.
Let's go ahead and take a phone call.
Yep.
Let's go to Craig, who's calling from McKinney, Texas. Craig, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. You're on the air.
Craig.
Jay, how are you today,
Good, sir?
Here's what I don't understand. You know, the church in America, the Christian body of Christ in America, to a large degree, has gone to sleep. You know, the Bible tells us we're to contend for the faith. And that word faith in the original Greek language is the word pistis, and it means the moral truthfulness of God's teachings.
Yep.
And the church is asleep. Pastors don't want to talk about it because it makes people uncomfortable.
Craig, I know that there's concern about this. There is on every issue that say the church. I actually am seeing the opposite. I'm seeing the churches understanding this issue in a huge way. 101,479 people signed our petition to stand up for Christians in the Middle East, calling for what's going on there to be genocide. That petition's only been up for 4 days. And 101,000 signatures. The House of Representatives passed legislation to protect the United States from refugees that can't be screened. That's now going to the United States Senate. Pastors have called into this broadcast saying that they are talking about this. So I think, Craig, here's the hope. I think that the faith community gets this. I mean, I think really understands what we're dealing with. What we have to do, and this is what I'm urging everybody to do that's listening to the broadcast today, You tell your friends we're on the air, and we break this stuff down. I mean, we start working on this about 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're working on it. Listen, I was sending out emails last night at midnight. This is big. These are big issues. I've got children. I've got grandchildren, and I'm concerned about it, and you should be too. So, Craig, hang in there. Don't give up. And friends on Facebook and Periscope, share this with your friends. Those of you listening on radio or watching on the website or television, contact your friends too and let them know we're on talking about this.
Yeah, one comment just came in from Chuck Ferris Hilty on Facebook, I believe, on Facebook, said, how many more attacks on U.S. soil or attacks or arrests will it take to wake up our government and wake up the people?
Well, this is the concern that, Than, you're bringing up, and that is we now, this would be one thing. I mean, politically one thing if it was, the state of Texas and the state of California arrested these two individuals and charged them, again, I'll reset that, refugees from Iraq, both Palestinian origin, both engaged with ISIS at significant levels. Got through our system, eventually get arrested. I'm glad the FBI caught them. That's a good thing. But the fact is, this wasn't state arrests. This was the United States Department of Justice making these arrests. You have Comey saying we can't screen the people, and you worry about what is it going to take for this administration to say, halt. You're coming from this region of the world right now. Stop. We can't. Let's give in-region aid, big aid in region. That's why you want a genocide designation. But stop into the United States until we know what we've got.
Well, and this is anything but the first warning sign, Jay. I mean, we talked about this during the break.
It was a couple weeks ago.
Well, and even before that, ISIS told us specifically that this is what they were going to do. They were going to exploit the refugee program to inflict harm on America. The president chose to do nothing. Then they did exploit the K-1 visa program. The president still did nothing. Then the FBI director warned that he could not vet these refugees. The president still did nothing. Now we have arrest overnight, Jay, and if he does nothing today, I've got to tell you, the only thing left, and this is a sober statement to make, but the only thing left is an attack. Is it going to take an attack by someone in the refugee program for the president to act? I sure hope it doesn't.
Then you made an interesting statement. We talked about this before we went on air on another matter, but you said it again in the chat here, and that is if the refugee program is going to survive in the United States at all, it better get fixed before we have an attack through it. And I think that's right. Those that are sympathetic to the plight of refugees, and I get that, I want to know who they are before they come in, frankly. But if you think that program is going to survive when this is going on, let me break it to you. It's not, nor should it, until we fix this. I know that's a lot of the comments that are coming in. Let's take another comment or call.
Let's go ahead and take another call. Let's go to Tito, who's calling from New York on line one.
Hi, Tito. Welcome to JSA.
How are you guys doing today?
Good, sir.
Very good. Listen, I just I wonder why I would put in any more pressure on the Muslim community. They had to start, this is my opinion, I think they should start a campaign, you know what I mean, to educate the Muslim community about if there is any, start a campaign.
Well, look, Zuhdi Jasser's been on this program before and has said that Islam's got to cure itself for this, and that, in part, that's correct. I agree with Zuhdi. I think he's actually totally correct. The problem is, in the meantime, we can't just do nothing and say, well, the Muslim community, there's a problem within Islam, and the Muslim community needs to fix it. We could all say that's right. I agree. But the fact of the matter is, here's the problem. Right now, 2 people are arrested in the United States yesterday for providing material support to ISIS. They were granted refugee status in the United States and permanent legal residency in the United States before they were caught.
Got a comment that just came in via Facebook, and I think this is something you can address. Is what good does this do other than informing us? Ultimately, nothing will be done until a new president is picked, and that's the wrong way to look at something when it comes to situations of terrorism.
Number one, we don't have the luxury to do nothing. So when these incidents happen, we can't say, oh, well, they caught these 2, but what difference does it make? We now have to encourage additional prosecutions. We have to make this a priority. We can't sit back over the next 12 months and say, well, there's going to be election in November and it'll change then maybe. We can't do that.
And that's a big maybe.
A big maybe.
Right. I mean, there's a good chance you have someone who is elected who is a similar point of view, and you're going to have the same situation or worse. So you can't say, oh, well, the election's coming. My guy's going to win. That's not the way to look at something.
No, do not put this on the election. We need concrete because the FBI is supposed to be beyond that. And then this is where Congress does come in. We have to demand. I mean, listen, I'm glad the FBI caught these 2, but the fact of the matter is they were here, they got status, and then fortunately we caught them before they did something. They didn't do that in San Bernardino. So, it was great that it worked this time. It didn't work 3 weeks ago or a month ago, but it worked. It worked this time. But we can't relate on what the president may or may not do.
I want people to hear this, Jay. This is one of those that we can win over top of a veto. I'm telling you, the American people are behind this policy that we've laid out. The House has passed it in veto-proof margin. If the Senate takes this up next week, Jay, I would be willing to bet that they would pass it with a veto-proof majority because of all of the news and all of the pressure that is out there. Then it becomes irrelevant what the president says about it. Will override his veto.
Yeah, I think that's what you'd have to do here, and we're going to gear up for that. Don't forget, our petition now, 101,000 and growing. I mean, we could conceivably by this weekend get to 110,000, saying that we want Christians in the region in the Middle East designated as subject to genocide. We need your help on that. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. That's ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255. And we urge you to take action on this. Again, ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255. We have crossed 100,000 signatures recognizing the genocide to protect Christians in the Middle East. You can still add your name. Last day to do it today, ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. ACLJ.org or 877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
Islamic State jihadists behead, mutilate, and torture Christians. The brutal toll of nearly 1 million Christians have been slaughtered or displaced. ISIS is engaged in the blatant genocide of Christians in the Middle East. Yet, President Obama refuses to recognize the genocide against Christians. He's pressuring the State Department to deny endangered Christians critical legal protections from ISIS's slaughter. The ACLJ is fighting back, aggressively advocating for vital international legal protections for Christians. We've mobilized our offices on Capitol Hill and across the globe, filing crucial legal documents to protect persecuted Christians from ISIS genocide. Stand up for Christians right now. Sign on to our new petition to recognize the genocide and protect Christians. Call now 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.
So when it comes to freedom, you know what you got to do? You got to fight for it. And that means the Department of Justice arrest of the two individuals from Syria that came through Iraq, Iraqis that were Palestinian that came through Syria. Look, the FBI did their job and got them arrested. The problem is it shouldn't have happened in the first place. That means the people should not have been in the United States in the first place. Understand that. And Than, that's one of the things, we're going to take some calls here, but Than, that is one of the things we need to really emphasize here. I mean, we're glad they caught them, but they should not have been here.
Well, all of the evidence was there to keep them out, Jay, but we have proven that we cannot do this. And, you know, I think here's something that's very important to say. A couple of the last callers brought this up. The refugee program is important to us here at the ACLJ, but if someone that comes through that program, Jay, actually attacks the United States, it's going away forever, or for at least a very long time. So we will never again be able to use the refugee program unless we fix it so that it actually works.
You're absolutely correct. All right, let's go ahead and take some phone calls here.
All right, Mike is calling on line 3. Mike's calling in Wells, Maine. Mike, welcome to JSEC. You're live. Also, a viewer on Facebook. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Oh, you bet. Thank you for taking my call.
Yep.
And, you know, when you first came on and started talking about this, the first thing that came to my mind was when Donald Trump said that he wanted to keep Muslims from coming into our country. People thought that he had 3 heads, but you know, it's when you hear about things like what you guys are reporting on, it doesn't seem like such a bad idea. We want to keep our country open. My grandparents on my dad's side came over from Italy, and we're all about letting people come in. But you know what? When you have a group of people that are this controversial, you kind of want to be careful.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. I'm the grandson of a Jewish Russian immigrant to the United States of America. So I believe that we need immigration. I understand that. But we have a region of the world right now that is not under control of people that we know or can trust. And there are people being displaced and harmed. There is avenues to protect them within the region that we need to really utilize here. And that's why the designation of genocide is so critical. What we cannot do, though, is when you have a process where we know that the terrorists, we've not had this before, where terrorists are utilizing our immigration and naturalization services to cause the destruction of life in the United States and bring harm in the United States, acting as they are, as terrorists. We do not have the luxury of doing nothing. And I think, Jordan, we've reached a point now where we're not talking about which candidate's right or wrong, but that a pause is in order.
Yeah, that's right. It's just that basically our system is our system is failing. You could start from where the part of the world where this problem is emanating from. If it was World War II and you were concerned about Germans, or if in this case when you're dealing with a problem arising out of Syria and Iraq, you're dealing with a specific group of people. The fact that these individuals are traveling back and forth between these places and being able to get back in and go through the process of re-entering, that is very concerning. And it all goes to that issue of putting a pause, getting our system up to speed so that we can get the right refugees, people who really are seeking asylum, safety here in the United States or resettled in other places around the world. But if our system doesn't work, imagine the rest of the world's systems. I mean, that's also very concerning.
But here's what's happened. This guy came to the United States, got status, went back to Syria, fought, came back in the United States. Posted online. Is this a Facebook social media post? Thank you, Will. America will not isolate me from my Islamic duty. Only death will do us part. That's what he wrote. My only wish is to see you and start the action. I mean, how did we not look at this? And Than, this goes to the fundamental disconnect between what's really happening and our laws and legislation. And it's time for the laws to catch up with the reality of the fight.
Jay, it's because this administration views looking at public statements, which is what social media posts are, they view looking at public statements as profiling.
Yeah, and it is invasion of privacy.
Right.
Yeah, but
if that's profiling, we need to do it.
Of course, every crime is profiled. Look, I've represented. I'm doing a case right now. I'm representing one of the states in a criminal action. I'm actually appointed to represent the state of Georgia in a case at the Georgia Supreme Court. Let me tell you something. When every crime is profiled, I'm handling one right now. It's a crime. It's profiled. That's the way it is. We're taking your calls, 800-684-3110, comments as well.
Yeah, David just said on Periscope, well, they are profiling, but they're profiling Christian refugees.
Yes, because there's one been admitted to the United States of America. That's so far. One. And they will not, if you want to help Christians in the Middle East, folks, get the genocide designation put in place, and you're going to get aid to them in the Middle East. So do that at aclj.org or 877-989-2255. I urge you to do that. aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255. Easy to do.
Let's go back to the phones. Barbara has been holding for almost a half an hour. Barbara, thank you for holding on line 5 in Little River, South Carolina.
Barbara, I'm going to send you on one of our books.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Sure. You've been holding a long time.
I just want to tell you, I have listened to you for a long time, and thank God for you. This is my comment. The truth is our president clearly understands and recognizes what is going on. He has methodically made decisions to oppose the USA. Actions speak louder than words.
Well, look, I'm not defending him. I am sure not, Barbara. I think we've got a disaster. I am glad the FBI did these arrests. I think this is big. I think it's important. But you want to know the truth? Once he left the United States, that should have been the key off. That should have been the determining factor. When the Sarnoffs brothers returned to the Chechenian region, that should have been the decision. That's not complicated. I mean, Jordan, that's where there's a gap here. And I respect the FBI. I've worked with the FBI. I have a lot of respect for the FBI. But look, the reality is we've got a situation that is under control. It's not in control right now. It's just not. And we've got to figure out what we're going to do about it.
No, and here's the speaking to the bigger issues, that these laws already exist, but they're clearly not being enforced the right way. So the fact is, for these refugees, and this is how they're being reported as fleeing from Palestinian origin but born in Iraq, when they return back to that region, you are forfeiting your refugee status. All we have to do, this kind of gets that bigger immigration issue too. If we enforce the laws that were on the books, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we are now, which now that whole system needs reform. We all know that, regardless of what side you're on the immigration issue, because it got out of control to where there's 12 million plus people here that it got through the process. That all goes to the fact that didn't just happen because that didn't happen because there were legal problems. It happened because the laws weren't enforced.
Right. Now, Than, you're thinking the total pause, which is what we've put forward in our position paper that's up, is the way to go on this.
There's no question it's the way to go because it's the one that's achievable, Jay. I mean, there are other proposals out there that want to make it religion-specific or region-specific or whatever it may be. If we propose an outright pause, it is more effective, it is less controversial, and I'm here to tell you, it can attract the votes that can override a veto. And for all those callers who have been calling in from California, Senator Dianne Feinstein, that is going to be one of the bellwethers on this. If she decides that an outright pause is in order, there will be the votes in the Senate to override a presidential veto.
Yep. We just had a comment come in to kind of reiterate that from Tammy on Facebook. She said, hit pause, provide aid in their region. That's the most logical thing I've heard all day. And I think that's true. We're coming up with a plan here that isn't involving you have to keep all of a certain religion out or you have to do these things or saying we're never going to do it. It's just this tactical version of providing aid and figuring out how to best serve the American people and those coming into the country to protect the people that are even coming into the country for the right reasons.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's exactly right. So the Logan, what you said is right, and what the comment said was absolutely correct. So what we're saying is you hit pause until you figure out the vetting thing, because that's a big issue. So that's number one. Number two, let's get the Christian genocide designation in place so that Christians in the region, as well as others that are being persecuted, are actually protected with in-region aid. If you look at the in-region numbers, this is what we've said before, 4 million people in region, and you look at the disbursement of gender and age, it fits normal family patterns, familiar patterns. That's how it works. When you look at those that have gone to Europe rather than in region, it is 65% male, most of which are between the ages of 18 and 34. That's not a good sign. That's just fact. And we deal with facts. So we're saying hit pause, get aid in the region, stabilize the region, and my goodness, the Obama administration's not doing that, but that is the way to do this. We have time for another comment?
We have one comment that came in and said, we aren't looking at refugee social media, but we are eavesdropping on the Israelis and on Congress.
Yes, and the IRS wanted the names and social security numbers of your donors, which they lost that. But yes, we aren't looking at refugees. This was from Cheryl on Facebook. Yeah, good comment. We aren't looking at refugee social media, but we're eavesdropping on Israelis and members of the United States Congress. I'm looking at right now over 101,000 signatures on a petition. I add phones to that, Will. I'm thinking probably close to 110,000. So go to ACLJ.org right now or 1-877-989-2255. Let's get Christians designated as part of that genocide. That's going to help us in our fight, and it's going to help them in the region. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. ACLJ.org or 1-877-989-2255. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Islamic State jihadists behead, mutilate, and torture Christians. The brutal toll of nearly 1 million Christians have been slaughtered or displaced. ISIS is engaged in the blatant genocide of Christians in the Middle East. Yet, President Obama refuses to recognize the genocide against Christians. He's pressuring the State Department to deny endangered Christians critical legal protections from ISIS's slaughter. The ACLJ is fighting back, aggressively advocating for vital international legal protections for Christians. We've mobilized our offices on Capitol Hill and across the globe, filing crucial legal documents to protect persecuted Christians from ISIS genocide. Stand up for Christians right now. Sign on to our new petition to recognize the genocide and protect Christians. Call now 1-877-989-2255 or add your name online, aclj.org.